Will it make a billion? Every year towards the beginning of the year, I do my best to try and predict which movies for the upcoming year will hit that mythological $1 billion mark. For 2024, I did just okay. Like everyone else, I was able to predict Deadpool and Wolverine hitting the $1 billion mark, but I underestimated people's love for Inside Out 2, or just Inside Out, and then I overestimated people's love for Minions and Despicable Me. But to be fair, I was pretty close on that one. I did assign a couple movies a strong maybe. Wicked, which did well. Mufasa and Garfield, which did perfectly fine. And then there's the whole Moana 2 fiasco. Not so much a fiasco, but when I made the predictions, Moana 2 was a TV show, and then obviously became a movie, and now it made $1 billion. But I'm not holding that one against me. So in total, 3 movies from last year made over $1 billion, which is, I think, perfectly fine comparatively speaking, especially since we're 1 year post a writers and actors strike. However, 2025 is a different story. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to be a bonkers year like 2019, where 9 separate movies made over $1 billion. However, compared to the last few years, I think 2025 does have a higher ceiling. And just in case it wasn't clear, a movie making $1 billion or failing to do so is not an indicator of its quality. Bad movies make a lot of money, good movies make a lot of money. Sometimes neither of them make any money. The box office is at its most interesting when looked at as this gateway into the psyche of a moviegoer. Why will this specific movie make $1 billion? That's what's fascinating about it. So here's what we'll do in this video. We'll go through the serious-ish contenders chronologically by release date and assign them essentially a tier. Either the A tier, this is definitely absolutely going to make $1 billion. The B tier, the on the bubble tier, which implies they're on the bubble, could go either which way, and then the C tier, or the definitely not making $1 billion tier. And at the end, we'll put them all in a very nice, visually appealing tier list to take a look at all of them together. And then hopefully, if I'm still doing this in a year, we'll compare and see how I did. I guess it's important to point out that usually I do this towards the beginning of the year, like in January, but let's be honest with each other, nothing came out in January or February that really posed any $1 billion threat, so it felt right to start towards March, where things appear to be heating up a little bit. So without further ado, starting with March, specifically March 7th, our first big movie to discuss is Mickey 17. This one is interesting because you would think that Bong Joon-ho's first movie post-Parasite, which obviously saw incredible awards and critical success, did very respectable at the box office. You would think that Mickey 17 would be this, I don't know, commercial success. But after numerous delays, early projections for Mickey 17 are not the best. And I have this sneaking suspicion that Mickey 17 will not only not make the $1 billion, that's not the suspicious part. My suspicion is that it's going to flop. Now, this is the moment where I reference back to what I said earlier, that making $1 billion or failure to make $1 billion or failure to make any money, period, is not indicator of quality. Mickey 17 to me is giving off Furiosa vibes. A great movie that potentially no one will see. My evidence? I have none. Purely anecdotal, purely vibes. I've never hoped so badly to be so wrong, but currently the verdict for Mickey 17 is C tier. It is absolutely not happening. Novocaine, not a true serious contender, but it looks fun, and I hope it does well. The Electric State, the latest project from the Russo brothers, starring the always stuck in Netflix jail, Millie Bobby Brown. Obviously, the movie won't contend for the Billy, but let's pretend that Netflix treats their views or watches as currency, which, to be honest, they do. The Electric State is going to do incredibly well. This will be the ultimate coworker movie. A lot of people are going to be watching this. Will it be any good? I don't suspect it will, but regardless, don't be surprised to read the next morning some headline that says, The Electric State, the most watched movie on Netflix in the month of March, or in Netflix history. Something like that. Snow White. You know, there was a time where I would have said, oh, a Disney live action remake. Here we go. Here comes the $1 billion. But that time was in 2019, where we got The Lion King and Aladdin. It is now 2025. That is not going to happen. The Little Mermaid remake did okay numbers. The Pinocchio live action remake went straight to streaming. And then Mufasa, which was an original idea, also did okay. But nothing has gotten close to what 2019 had brought. And considering just the amount of controversy that surrounds this movie, whether that be the CGI dwarves or the awful person and actress that is Gal Gadot, not only will this movie not make $1 billion, but a flop is imminent. I feel like April brings us our first real and serious contender in a Minecraft movie. And before you run to the comments, hear me out very quickly. I know in our little film circles, the movie, we can all agree, looks terrible. Jack Black is on a losing streak. On the surface, everything does point to a potential flop, but here's why I'm saying yes, lock it in as our first $1 billion movie of 2025. And there's one reason and one reason only. It's very simple. It's Minecraft. Minecraft is the best-selling video game of all time. Not of the 21st century, not of the last 5 years, of all time. Nothing even came close. As of December 2024, Minecraft still has over 200 million active players. 200 million. The quality of this movie does not matter. Remember how well Five Nights at Freddy's did? And that was a horror movie, and it came out on Peacock the same exact day. Think of the Minecraft movie having the same effect as the Super Mario movie. Of course, not as iconic of a character, but still an incredibly, incredibly popular franchise. I think it's easy as an adult to forget that families are looking for movies to take their entire family to go see, and Minecraft will be that movie. Does it look bad? Yes, it looks bad, but little Billy, who's at the restaurant screaming for his iPad, does not care. I almost hesitated on Sinners because people love vampires. Ryan Coogler is an incredible director. People are excited. However, if there's one thing that you need to remember, no horror movie in the history of movies has ever made $1 billion, at least pre-inflation. Keep that in mind. It's going to come up several times in this video. All right, I know I just said that horror movies don't make $1 billion, and I'm not going to imply that Until Dawn is going to make $1 billion, but horror as a genre is extremely profitable. So Until Dawn, while it won't make $1 billion, will probably do very well. With Thunderbolts, we might be venturing into our very first on-the-bubble candidate. And I know it would be easy to write this off as another Marvel L, a Marvel flop, but these team-up-esque movies typically get audiences a little bit more excited, and just anecdotally speaking, it feels like audiences are being more receptive to this movie. But ultimately, even despite a warmer reception from audiences, Thunderbolts is probably more in the C tier. I know I teased an on-the-bubble tier, but I feel like for that tier, the movie has to be kind of getting closer to $700, $800 million, and I don't see Thunderbolts even getting that close. Final Destination Bloodlines. Not happening. However, I am very excited, and that's all that matters. Lilo and Stitch. Now, this one is interesting, and for this movie, I am going to place it in the B tier. It's going to be on the bubble. Well, with Snow White, I'm fairly confident in saying that movie will not make the $1 billion. Lilo and Stitch, I am feeling a little bit more torn for a couple of reasons. One, well, it's not riddled in controversy. That always helps. But two, people simply love Lilo and Stitch. The story is much more appealing to families. The CGI looks good. This one's a hard one to gauge because all we have right now are a couple of teasers, some Super Bowl shenanigan TV spots. Once we get an actual trailer, we'll have a better idea of will people be receptive to it. But for now, I think it might surprise us, and I'll put it in on the bubble. Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. I don't think it's a crazy thing to say that people love Mission Impossible. You know who is crazy? That Tom Cruise guy. Now that guy is a bit crazy. But while Dead Reckoning Part 1 did do well, technically speaking, it did do the worst since Mission Impossible 3. And its shortcomings can be attributed to a variety of reasons. One of them being, well, the movie was released about 2 weeks, maybe a week before Barbenheimer, or because the movie had Part 1 in the title, which can be a turnoff for some people, what have you. But here's what we need to consider. One of them is obviously Tom Cruise. He's a superstar, and he's a draw for many demographics, and he has a $1 billion movie under his belt. We can't ignore any of that. But maybe as important as Tom Cruise is the fact that this is allegedly the final reckoning. Allegedly is the important word here, but if this is truly the end of an era, that would be a driver for people to leave their homes and go to a theater to watch it. Will it pass Mission Impossible Fallout, which made around $786 million? I think so. Will it hit the $1 billion mark? That's where I feel more skeptical, and so I'm going to put this in the B tier. it's on the bubble. Karate Kid Legends is not going to make $1 billion. You can put it in the C tier. However, it is a movie that I think you should have on your radar. Karate Kid as a franchise has been reinvigorated thanks to Cobra Kai. Having Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio will pique the interest of different demographics and different generations. I think the movie's going to have legs. Let's just hope those legs don't get swept. June 2025, let's start with Ballerina from the world of John Wick. Awful title aside, every John Wick movie since John Wick 1 has made more money than the previous film. That trend will likely end with Ballerina. However, that is not to say the movie won't do well. Ana de Armas is still somewhat of a draw. Putting Keanu Reeves in the trailer was probably a smart move. I think the action heads will show up, but not $1 billion worth of action heads. Historically speaking, I'm terrible at predicting Pixar films, so for Elio, let's look at some concrete facts first. Fact number 1, the most recent original Pixar movie, which was Elemental, did do well at the box office. Obviously, that movie, it took a while to get there, but it did make over $500 million. Fact number 2, and maybe the most important fact to remember, no original Pixar film has ever made $1 billion. The closest was in 2003 with Finding Nemo. Now, I'm not saying that means Elio won't make the billion, but the odds are not in its favor. But let's play devil's advocate very quickly. Pixar is coming off a big year with Inside Out 2, which until about a week ago was the highest grossing animated movie of all time. Was that enough to convince Pixar skeptics to go back to theaters and watch original films? Only time will tell. Ultimately, I'm going to place it in C tier, but a lot of this is dependent on what Disney decides to do. Do they show it in movie theaters for a month, put it on VOD right afterwards, and then let people watch it on Disney Plus? Or do they pull an Elemental and let it sit in theaters for 2 to 3 months and allow it to naturally, word of mouth, grow? I have been dreading this part, the discussion on the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake, mainly because I fear we will have to lock this one in for the billion. Again, this is another one where regardless of quality, this is a remake of a recognizable and beloved franchise. People are very excited. And for me, it's more fearful of what this means for the future of not just DreamWorks films, but I don't mean to sound overly dramatic, but the future of films in general. Will the success of now also DreamWorks inspire other studios to go back in their catalog and make live action remakes of classic animated films? What about DreamWorks themselves? Will they make live action Shrek? Live action Shark Tale, live action Boss Baby? Where is the line drawn? Is there a line even drawn? Because you and I both know that some executive in some skyscraper right now is probably pitching live action this or that. And I'm not placing the blame only on DreamWorks. Clearly Disney was the catalyst to this. But while Disney cracked the door open, if this movie succeeds in the way that I think it will, DreamWorks is opening the floodgates. 28 years later, what is the line? No horror movie has ever made $1 billion. Yeah. But that trailer rocks. I'm excited Danny Boyle's back. I'm very excited to watch this. Megan 2.0.
Hi, I'm Megan.
Sometimes I feel like I'm alone in my excitement for F1, but here are some reasons why I think you should not completely write this movie off for the Billy. It's being directed by Joseph Kosinski, who directed Top Gun Maverick, which made $1 billion. I know F1 and Top Gun Maverick are not one-to-one comparisons, but I think it's something we should consider. And maybe most importantly is the popularity of F1, which personally I'm not familiar with, but according to the data that I'm seeing here, the sport has increased in popularity over the last couple of years. So at the very least, it has somewhat of a mass appeal. I don't know, I'm gonna throw this one in the on the bubble tier, in tier B. I know that sounds crazy, but hey, we gotta spice it up a little bit and take some risks once in a while. All right, we have made it to, as Sid from Toy Story would say, the big one. July of 2025. 3 movies in July all have billion-dollar potential, but not all 3 can make the $1 billion. Cuts will have to be made. The first one to be released is Jurassic World Rebirth, and this one I am not cutting. I'm saying easy yes, lock it in for the $1 billion. Jurassic Park as a franchise is a money-making machine, and Jurassic World specifically, all of them made $1 billion, regardless of how mediocre some of them were. Which begs the question, why did those movies make $1 billion? Was it because of Chris Pratt and company? Well, that's a theory, but here's a crazy theory for you to consider. People love dinosaurs. Old people love dinosaurs, young people love dinosaurs, everyone loves dinosaurs. Jurassic Park as a franchise is here forever, even if the dinosaurs weren't. Sorry, dinosaurs. When it comes to the battle of the comic book movies, we have an all-timer on our hands. Marvel versus DC, Fantastic Four versus Superman. One of them will make $1 billion, I think, and one of them will not. A decision has to be made, and for this video, I'm going to say it right now. Superman will make the $1 billion, and Fantastic Four will not. Of course, a lot of this is just speculation, but I do have some reasons for my decision making. One of the biggest reasons for Fantastic Four not making $1 billion is fairly simple. It's embedded in the MCU, a universe that has been trending downward recently. And to be fair to Fantastic Four, it does offer a reset of sorts, which is exciting to people who are maybe exhausted from all the TV shows and all the multiverse and all the universal shenanigans. But it's still a part in a greater universe. And I know MCU fans typically forget this because a lot of fans have been embroiled in this universe since 2008 or so. But a lot of people who are not going to movies don't want to do homework to watch a film. And I'm sure you could watch Fantastic Four and not have to do homework. However, you will likely at some point need to do homework, watch television shows, watch the sequels, watch movies before it. And the typical person does not want to do that. Hell, even fans are getting tired of doing that. But I'm not trying to imply that Fantastic Four is, one, going to be bad, or two, even going to flop. I think it's going to be on the bubble. That's why I'm placing it in the B tier. I think it's going to do extremely well, but not hit the $1 billion. Sometimes it's not rocket science. Sometimes it is just as straightforward as it's more popular. And Superman undeniably is in like the top 2 most popular superheroes of all time. Many people would argue the most popular superhero. So the verdict is Superman is in the A tier, lock it in for the $1 billion. Fantastic Four is in the B tier, it's on the bubble. We'll see what happens. I know it seems insignificant to mention that the Smurfs movie also comes out in July, but I don't think we should completely write it off. It is a family movie, and families will go watch it. It has some big names attached to it. It's going to take a similar path to like Garfield, where it'll quietly make like $400, maybe $500 million. And that's it. That wraps up July. That wraps up the summer. And essentially, there's only like 4 or 5 more movies that are even worth mentioning for 2025. One of them is Michael, the Michael Jackson biopic. And I know it's easy to assume the world is tired and exhausted of biopics. Maybe that's me projecting my own feelings, but I think we need to be locking in Michael for $1 billion. Obviously, biopics are a little bit different from other genres of movies because a lot of that success is tied to the central figure and that figure's popularity. But that's exactly why I think we should be locking the Michael movie in the $1 billion club. Michael Jackson is arguably one of the most iconic, most popular musical artists to have ever lived. Your parents will be excited to watch Michael. Your grandparents will be excited to watch Michael. People who never go to the movies or go to the movies maybe one time a year are excited to watch Michael. Controversy does not matter. Quality does not matter. If you need any evidence of this, keep in mind one thing. Bohemian Rhapsody, which was a terrible movie, made over $900 million. So yeah, lock this one in for the $1 billion. Tron is cool as hell. I personally love Tron Legacy. It has a very dedicated fan base. It's not hitting the $1 billion mark. In last year's predictions, I got a few things wrong, got a few things right, but one of the things I did get right was saying people love Wicked, and they do. Last year, Wicked grossed around $630 million and scored a ton of Oscar nominations. Even if the movie went home with 0 Oscars, historically speaking, sequels make more than their previous films, and a lot more people will go watch Wicked for good, even though it has an awful title. But obviously the big question is, how many more? How popular will the movie be? I don't think it'll be $1 billion worth, so I'm putting it in B tier. I think it's going to make somewhere around $750 million, but we'll see. Zootopia 2 is where I'm going to apply the lessons I learned from last year's predictions to these ones. Last year, I said something along the lines of, oh, Inside Out 2, people loved Inside Out. It's been X amount of years. Do people still care about Inside Out? And I said they do, but not $1 billion worth. Clearly, I was extremely wrong. So with that knowledge, I'm not making the same mistake again. Zootopia 1 made $1 billion. It's been 9 years, who cares? So what? People love that fox and rabbit. probably a little too much if we're being honest. You guys got to calm down out there. But yes, lock in Zootopia 2 for the $1 billion. And last but not least, we have Avatar Fire and Ash. Look, Avatar Way of Water taught us a lot of different lessons. One of those lessons is that you don't doubt James Cameron, the only director in the history of movies to have two 2 billion movies under his belt. And lesson number 2, Avatar in 2009 was clearly not a fluke. 13 years. That was the gap between Avatar and Avatar Way of Water. And people clearly did not care. They still flocked to the theater in droves. Anyways, there is no evidence to support why this movie all of a sudden would flop. So yeah, lock this one in as well for $1 billion. And that basically covers all of the big movies in 2025. If there's anything I missed, here's a rapid fire segment of a bunch of movies that won't make $1 billion. And just as a recap, here's a reminder of all the movies I placed in the A tier, the absolutely lock it in for $1 billion tier. The movies are as follows: Avatar Fire and Ash, Zootopia 2, Michael, Superman, Jurassic World Rebirth, How to Train Your Dragon, and a Minecraft movie. 7 movies, which seems ambitious. It would be the best box office year since 2019. But strangely, I feel really comfortable and confident in these picks. And for some added just for funsies, I'm going to try to rank these 7 movies from lowest to highest in terms of how much money they'll make. So in 7th, I have a Minecraft movie. In 6th, I will go How to Train Your Dragon, and then Jurassic World Rebirth, and then Superman, and then Michael, then Zootopia 2, and then Avatar Fire and Ash. That ranking I'm a lot less confident on, but hey, let's, again, take some risks. Why not? I'm going to put a link to the tier list in the description of the video, so if you want to go ahead and create your own tier list with your own predictions, you can, and that way you can tag me, we can compare and contrast and see what the big differences are. And this is the end. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube stuff. But have a wonderful day, night, weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.